joining us now. Fox News contributor Liz Peek and energy pro Nick Loris at C3 Solutions back with us. Liz, okay, it's like it's like the little boy with the paper bag on his head standing in the middle of the room. I mean, Wharton's College, business school rather, Moody's Analytics. We've got other economists saying, no, the Inflation Reduction Act is not going to lower inflation. And Liz, inflation is now moving from just goods to the services sector. We're showing how recessions have slammed 4 presidents, Nixon, Ford, Carter, and George H.W. Bush. So how can they say they're making progress with this new read?
Liz, I have no idea, Liz. I mean, imagine what they say about the Inflation Reduction Act. What do they claim in that? They claim that a $300 billion reduction in long-term deficits will improve inflation. But then months later, weeks later, Biden decides to spend another $500 billion on student loan cancellations. So this White House is literally fighting itself, and it's not helping. The reading today from the CPI was really bad news. It shows that we are going to have a lot more pain. Jay Powell has warned about that. I don't think Americans are ready for it. I don't think the Democrats are going to survive it.
It's an important point what Liz just made, because, Nick, we're talking about the poor and middle class getting slammed. This is about throwing $7.5 trillion in hot money since 2019 into a locked-up system, reeling from pandemic shutdowns. That's equal to France and Germany combined, Nick.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is going to hit the poor the hardest, who spend a higher percentage of their budget on energy costs. Gas prices are coming up to $4 per gallon again, and the National Energy Assistance Directors Association warned that home heating costs could be the highest in 10 years. And particularly if you're in the Northeast and using home heating oil, those prices are up 74% compared to 2 years ago. So this is all economic pain, and all of that means less money available for food, for healthcare, and for other goods that Americans really need.
You know, to Nick's point, but by the way, let's back up. For a year now, it's been a year now, the White House has been misleading and gaslighting on inflation. Watch this.
Increases in prices are likely to have only transitory effects on inflation.
Transitory.
Inflation rate month to month is just just an inch.
Up an inch. It's like up 900 yards. Okay, look at the polls from CNN, Politico, and The Economist. Liz, Democrats can now lose the Senate. You know, independent voters in swing states are turning against the White House, and Harvard has a poll out, a survey analysis showing, to Nick's point, that it is really slamming minorities, the poor, and the middle class. I mean, as Carol Roth says, the Federal Reserve, they can't print more oil, they can't print more food, they can't print more commodities or labor. Inflation is a big problem, but, you know, now they have the Capitol riots hearing today. What do you think of what's going on?
It's a massive distraction. I think they are so hoping that this election is a referendum on Donald Trump instead of a referendum on Joe Biden. Look, Liz, the biggest issue in inflation is energy. Nick just said that the home heating oil and natural gas are up 60, 70% year over year. Wait till people see what it's going to cost to heat their homes. But Biden will not encourage drilling in America. This is unconscionable. Honestly, I think it's the dumbest political move I've ever seen in my life. This is what his approval ratings are tied to. When gasoline prices went down for 98 days, his approval ratings went up. Now they're going up. Gasoline prices, guess what? Joe Biden's approval ratings are going to go down, and it's going to hurt him big time in November.
Let's watch ABC's George Stephanopoulos and watch AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She got shouted down by a voter. Watch this.
You're saying there's going to be all this new Secret Service evidence that comes out, but I guess my big question about that is, what else do we need to know? He lost the election. He lied about it. He stoked up a crowd of armed militants. They stormed the Capitol while he watched it on TV. Shouldn't that be case closed?
Congresswoman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because there are a bunch of war hawks, okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens?
You know, voters are outraged. You could feel it, Nick. I mean, they're talking about the Capitol riots, but not the origins of the COVID pandemic, not pandemic fraud where government workers at Homeland Security and the IRS are stealing pandemic relief money. So that's what's going on, Nick.
Yeah, they're not talking about energy affordability and energy security, which Americans desperately want and need. And again, on day one, it was anti-energy policies. Look at the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, which could have brought up to 830,000 barrels of oil per day down to Gulf Coast refineries. And instead, we're relying on Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and OPEC Plus announced their production cut. And so this isn't good from an economic standpoint. It's not good from an emissions standpoint if we're relying more on Venezuelan production than American production. And it's certainly not good from a price standpoint as Americans are paying more at the pump. So it makes
so they're
not
going
a lick of economic sense or environmental sense.
They're not going to Texas or Alaska for oil. They're going to other dictators. You know, Liz and Nick, I want your final word on this. Saudi Arabia confirms that the president and the White House did pressure OPEC to delay cuts in oil output until after the midterms, so gas would not go up. Was this to keep Democrats in power? I'm going to ask you both about that, because the White House saying, yeah, we asked for that delay until OPEC meets again, which is after the midterms. What do you think, Liz?
Without a doubt. Liz, they asked for a 1-month delay. Was that for Americans and to help Americans pay for their fuel this winter? No, it was to help Democrats. As I just said earlier, it is tracking totally with energy prices, gasoline prices, fuel oil prices. That's what the Democrats are worried about. And you know what? I think it's already hurting them. And this was a huge embarrassment.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Liz hit the nail on the head. And the President Biden needs a change in posture and policy, and that's to open up domestic production here, get that permitting reform back on the table so we can allow access to all of the above energy policy and actually build the necessary energy infrastructure, get the supplies online to lower costs.
Nick, this is not a good look to be asking them to delay the oil production cut until after the midterms, Nick.
Not at all, and it's politics at its worst. And, it's really the American people who are suffering from these decisions. And again, the more supply we can get online faster, that's what the president should be encouraging us to do.
Got it. Liz Peek, Nick Loris, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. It's good to see you both.